Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Introduction to Bid Writing for Hillingdon, part of the Fit to Bid programme from Branduin. Just quickly, my name is Alan Brown. So I've been involved in tenders on both sides, both writing them and evaluating tenders over the last 10 years. A lot of work that was with Capita, and myself and my colleagues in our company are now partners with Branduin, and we're expanding what is the brilliant Fit to Bid facility into the north of England. And I'm director of an advisory that does in similar work to Branduin, but we're now partners. So that's enough about me. You don't really need to know much about me. My co-host is Charlie McClelland, who's been working with Branduin for a long time. And he will be waving there nicely. I'll be jumping in later on, really taking more to the kind of the local successes of Fit to Bid and case studies, etc. Because close to that, just so you know, I'm in the north of England, so I'm away from England. I'm up in Preston, Lancashire. Right, okay, so the idea behind the whole Fit to Bid function is to give you and your company a competitive edge. And the start of that is these two online workshops. This one today, the Introduction to Bid Writing, which is a foundation, and then a more advanced one that goes into more detail and to improve your bid response, which is the 16th of April, which I think I might be delivering, but I don't actually know. So this is about, say, best practice and excellence in selling, but the frame is this is best practice and excellence in selling to the public sector, to the local authorities, which is different from, if you've not done it before, than best practice and excellence in selling in the commercial sector, in the private sector. So these are kind of things that we'll cover. Why do organizations go to tender and what they look for, getting the kind of basics right, and then what makes up a winning bid and the golden rules. And some of the golden rules seem really obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times they're missed. So it's say understanding questions and their objectives, confirm your solution, articulating benefits, providing evidence, research, and writing a bespoke, accurate and clear bid response. A lot of what we'll talk about here will be about getting into the mindset of your potential customer, which will be your local authority, what they're looking for, what kind of value they see, and how you sell to them. Okay. So a little bit about who Branduin are. Branduin are a business support company who are involved in all kinds of areas of business, not just Fit to Bid, but also it says there, run and grow businesses and overseas markets. They work with chambers of commerce, university hubs, and local authorities. Over those years, they built up a considerable and impressive, and quite rightly very proud of their partnerships and collaborations they've built over the years. Don't need to go through them. You can see lots of logos that you'll recognize there. There are several services that Branduin offer. Obviously, this is about Fit to Bid, but you can say quick scan, you can see there's other programs that Branduin offer. And for Fit to Bid, obviously this is for Hillingdon, but it's already been delivered successfully, or is still being delivered in all these areas as well. So what are the key issues for small companies? This is really the reason why Fit to Bid exists. So the top one is insufficient experience in the public sector, not necessarily understanding how the public sector works, or how you should contact them, or what kind of things they need and what they want for their companies. A second thing there is more of a belief than a fact. The industry is dominated by big companies that lock out SMEs. That's not necessarily the truth now. There was a time when it was a bit of a boys' club, but that's not the case anymore. It's a lot more transparent. And so this is a position where you can take on a large company and win a tender against them because your tender response is better than theirs for a variety of reasons. Your business is largely unknown to public sector buyers. Yes, there's an opportunity to reach out and network and build relationships with the buyers in the public sector so they know what you do. And along with that is not being able to reach the right people. The opportunity to research the local authorities in a way that you can't really research a normal business. Like when I say a normal business, like a normal commercial business. A lack of proactive marketing strategy and activity. Yes, this is part of it. You can't expect business to come to you. You need to go and find it. Dated or no client reviews, testimonials. This is really important. Testimonials are great. Case studies are even better. And you need to show evidence of what you do. It's no good just saying you're great at this. You need to evidence that you've already delivered this, you've already worked in this, you've already you solved this problem for a client, etc. Because you're trying to build up trust with the public sector. Unable to devote adequate time. The thing about that is you have to make the time. It is a skilled and can be a lengthy process, but the returns on that, the work you put in, are vast. So you need to look to devote adequate time and devote the right people to make it work. Limited knowledge about the tendering process. Well, that's the purpose of this, to give you an idea. This is the start of improving your knowledge of the tendering process if you haven't been down this route before. And even if you do know about the tendering process, you might not have experience in developing and writing a strong bid. A bid is very different, and it said that from, say, a brochure or a marketing campaign, it's not like that. Bid response is very specific, and we'll come to particular elements of it as to how you approach it. But I'll say one thing up front. The most important thing in a bid response is to answer the questions that is asked in the tender documentation, but we'll get to that. And I suppose it ties up with no idea what to put into response in making it a winning one. Yeah, what makes a strong response over a weaker one? So the fit to bid methodology, covers 5 areas. And the start off is to engage with procurement, and we'll talk about researching and looking at the procurement opportunities that you can find in your area. What the fit to bid process gets you to is then complete an online bid capability assessment. It's basically a questionnaire, gives you a report at the end of it, gives you an idea of where you are and your strengths and weaknesses around that. That's used then to improve your bidding skills based upon the questionnaire that you've completed. Then sales enablement, how to use those bidding skills, and how to build your value proposition, look at your company in the right way, the way that a procurement department will look at you, and then advice on how to actually complete the tender. Along with something incredibly valuable, which is set up of meet the buyer events, where you actually find yourself in the same room as these procurement departments from both local authority and some large tier 1 buyers. That's incredibly valuable in itself, and that's all part of the Fit to Bid program. So the program benefits. So you receive an assessment, you increase your knowledge and skills, you have 2 face-to-face meet the buyer events. Like I said, the value of them is amazing just on its own. You also access 2 confidential one-to-one tender advice sessions. So these are confidential for a reason. It's an ability to go under the hood of your own business and look at coming up with a strategy that works for your company. Because there's no blanket way of doing this. There's some general advice, but specifically for your sector and your company, we will help to guide you as the end of those one-to-one sessions that you have the skills and tools to progress. So then assistance in submitting expressions of interest, which is the first stage of a tender response, support in writing winning bids, and a completed tender bidders model canvas, which is a fit to bid product, which basically is a route for your business to make this a successful function for you, to make it so this is part of your business and this is how you get the best out of it. An understanding of your value position, so what it is that you do and the value that you offer to a procurement department. This is all about benefits, not features. I'm sure you've all heard that before in sales conversations, but this is incredibly important. A local authority has a job to do, a series of jobs to do, and what you're looking to do is to solve a problem for them. So your value proposition has to solve a problem for them. So they say, you're the right company to solve that for us. We'll give you the contract. There's engagement throughout the entire program with lots of support and regular and ongoing feedback. So it's a very, very complete, I'm hoping you see that it's a very, very complete process is Fit to Bid, which you're all going to benefit from. So in your local area, did you bid on any local tender opportunities? There's a lot of towns now that are having work being done, redevelopment programs. Did you bid on those? It's not a question you need to answer, but it's just a general question for you to think about. If you didn't, why not? So your experience in bidding. So 3 questions. Never tendered before, completed a handful of tenders, regularly submit bid and tenders. So if you want to put in the chat, if I can just, my apologies, I've just gone back a screen there. There you go. If you want to just put in the chat either 1, 2, or 3, that gives you an idea, it's an idea of those that have never tendered before, those that maybe you've done a handful, or those that have done regular submit tenders. So several have done no. Cheryl, you've done a handful, as is Asif. Okay, Lily, 1, 2. And for those, when they're if you put in either a 2 or a 3 or some, Aravinda, how would you describe your level of success? Would you say that was good, average, or bad? I mean, it's all objective, but how would you describe your level of success? Average. Okay. Okay. So for those that average or bad, there's probably reasons, and it is a learned skill. And if it's something that you're engaging yourself without any guidance, it can be quite difficult and quite daunting. And again, this is what Fit to Bid is here to support and help you with. So if we go on, why do organizations, this is a question again, there's no right or wrong answer, just curious. So why do organizations go to tender? And what do you think broadly they look for in a provider? So anybody wants to just put something in the chat as to what you think. Why do organizations, when we say organizations, we're just going to stick to the public sector. Why do public sector organizations go to tender? And what broadly do they look for in a provider? If anybody wants to put their thoughts into the chat. Value for money, absolutely. Select best possible option. Trust is a good one. Yeah. Looking to solve a problem. New projects, yes, absolutely. Yeah, that can be a good, very, very big reason. Competitive terms, yeah. And I think while you're typing those in, I think what's worth bearing in mind is we all have two hats. For the purposes of this conversation, we have the hat that we're running a business and we want to be successful, we want to have clients, but we pay our council tax and we pay our taxes, and we know that's the money that goes towards all these things that the local authority provide, and we want to make sure that it's value for money. The right companies are being brought in to do the right work, and it's something worth bearing in mind. Okay, so thank you for that. So this is the point here where it says putting yourself in the mind of the buyer, write your bid from their perspective. Empathy is powerful. So this is a really, really big thing. When you respond to a tender, it's really you have to answer in a way that benefits them. It isn't about how great your company is. It might be, but the fact is, being blunt, they're not interested. What they're interested in is what you can do for them, how you can solve that problem, how you can add value to them. What is it about your approach that makes you offer more value than another one? And empathy is everything. You need to look through their eyes as to what their issues are. Just at the end there, yeah, John runs show due diligence. Absolutely, this has to be transparent in just about every way. So in the bigger, you've covered some of these things. Why companies go to tender, and this covers both commercial tenders and public sector. So enable fair and objective comparison, minimize their risk, so they're not just cut to one supplier, ensure compliance with legislation, etc. Achieve a competitive price, as somebody put on there, deliver a return on investment value for money. That really is the big thing. And combined with that is to deliver efficiencies, probably those that can be measured. That's also a big thing. Now, my view is that small companies are very good at offering efficiencies, more than large companies. Not that large companies can't offer efficiencies, but there is a real golden opportunity for small companies to offer efficiencies too, in tender responses. What companies look for? They look for an innovative mindset driving higher value. Yeah, that you actually understand what it is they're after, and maybe approach, sometimes when possible, approach the solution in a unique way. You're competent, and you're able to carry the work out, and you can evidence that fact. You look to improve things. You're very communicative, and you're open to collaboration. You're a partner that fits them culturally, and They want reliable, accurate, real-time data. This is also something important, that they want to know if something can be measured, they will want to be measured. There's no contract that you would ever get, say, for example, a 2-year contract to deliver a service where they'll go disappear and 2 years later come back and talk. No, they will want to know how things are going all the time. And they'll want to see measurements of it to ensure that everything's on track and everything's been delivered correctly. Future focused expertise, they will look for companies actually saying, well, for the length of this is what we do, but actually in the future possibly we could do this. If you're looking to the future, that's also, if you can build that into your tender response, that's very, very strong. Transparent, open communications with the willingness to take accountability. Yes. So this hooks with the next one, which is problem solving ethic. Problems will arise. Things happen. They know that. And so the more open you are and transparent, you say, much better to say there is a problem when we're looking to solve it rather than say them tell you you have a problem. So you need to understand that and communicate with them well, and that you are open to solving problems and dealing with issues proactively. And that really everything is about ensuring your satisfaction with your customer. So for them, sorry, I'm rephrasing that. They ensure the satisfaction of internal customer. The procurement department of a local authority are there to procure services. Their internal customer within the local authority will be who they're reporting back to, who will say, how's this going? They'll want to make sure that they've done their job well, which means you have to do yours. So when they're procuring, that's very much in their mind. They're spending public money, and internally within, say, that council, they'll need to be able to prove that they've done a good job. You need to help them with that. So first things first, this is how there's a process for tender responses. So there is a supplier questionnaire. This is quite a detailed document. Every single tender requires you to supply this information. It is, thankfully, you only really need to do it in detail once because you can keep reusing the information. You follow absolutely exactly. It's about your company, about the way it's made up, what its legal stature is, and who has significant control. And then if there are any kind of issues around your supply chain, etc. And when I say issues, I mean there's which elements, how does this all work? It basically, what that is doing, the supply questionnaire, is making sure that you are fit and proper company for them to work with. So it's detailed, and it can look quite complex, but actually it is reasonably straightforward, and it is just about your legal status and stature and saying whether you've worked in this area before. And then after that is more to do with the actual specific tender, a form of tender, which is the basic document that you sign. Normally a non-collusion certificate to say that you're working in a proper and trustworthy way. There is a load of terminology, just looking at ITC invitation to tender, request for information, request for proposal, and PQQ, which is pre-qualification questions, because there are situations where they might not publish a full tender. What they'll do is they'll do what's called a pre-tender. They'll get expressions of interest from companies, and it gives you an opportunity to ask a few questions before they shape the full tender later. And this is something we go into in more detail in the later workshops. They would ask for your accounts and financials. I was asked this question by quite a large company the other day. So is it usual for them to ask for financial information? Yes, it is. And the information can be quite detailed what they want. And the reason for it is, again, they want to know that you're fit and proper company. But the easiest way that I think to think about it is, if you win a 2-3 year contract with a local authority, they want to be sure that you're still going to be here in 2-3 years. They want to know that you're being operated properly, you're run properly, because from their point of view, if your company was to fail and the contract didn't get completed, I know it's a very dramatic thing to say, but that causes all sorts of problems. So they want to make sure that you're being run properly and ethically. They will look for references, business references, rarely personal references, but you can use them. Generally, it's business references. They will often ask you for copies of your policies. From dramatic policies like the anti-slavery policies, through to your just ethical ways of working, and could also include things like social value. But this is something later on, but we make sure all your policies are in place. This does not mean you need a 30-page document. A policy can be a piece of A4 that details how your company operate, as long as it's something you can adhere to. But you do have to have those policies in place. A pricing file. These will always be different, and they can be quite complex to complete. depending on the product or service that you provide, every tender will have a different way of asking you for pricing information. So the last bullet there in bold is actually the most important one, which is a plan and allow sufficient time. On every tender document, it will say when the date is for why the date and time for when the response has to be in. So, and it's a, let's say it's was this coming Friday at 12 o'clock, it would be 12 o'clock noon. It would not be 1 minute past. They don't allow for that at all. You would automatically be disqualified. So we always say to head for 1 day ahead. Don't plan for, say it was this Friday, you plan for the Thursday, because time just disappears while you're doing this. It is quite time hungry. Now for the real writing that it says there. So responding to a tender is a process. It's not something you can knock up in a few hours. It is a very carefully managed. So it is, but allow sufficient time and project manage. So approach it in the right way. Build your timeline as to how you're going to do this, how you're going to answer the questions. A suggestion is to use a simple Excel spreadsheet to track your targets, goals, milestones, etc., to deliver that. I think that's a very good idea. And we can give you examples of how to do that. Who's on your bidding team? Now, it might just be you, but it would be always better to have somebody around you for a sense check to help you with it, to make sure that the content is not accurate necessarily. It will be accurate, but also that it reads well, that it's understood. One of the things that's missed in tender responses is you've got to bear in mind that when you issue that response, the person that's going to read it won't be an expert in what you do. So you need to make sure that the language you use is really, really straightforward and unambiguous. And one of the ways of helping that is to have a strong bidding team around you, people that support you, other people that can read it and sense check it. Make sure that includes your other stakeholders, both internal and external. And you know the deadlines. Make sure that deadline is really clear, and making sure that your deadline is the day before the actual deadline. And yes, at the bottom there, make sure so other than the writer proofreads your response before you send it. It is really, really important, because you can get too close to something you've been stared at for ages, and you get it, but you actually need somebody to turn around and go, I don't understand that, or so what? And that's really valuable. So then you can rewrite and reword it, and you need to make these proofing sessions, a few days before the final date, which in the final date should be your day before, if that makes sense. And that's how you can build something on an Excel sheet to track that, so you know where you are. A winning bid. So the principal elements, the right price, and then the golden rules, which we'll go into in more detail as we go through this. So it directly answers the questions according to the evaluation criteria. So in every tender, there will be a document that asks questions. And the very, very most key piece of advice I can ever give you is to answer those questions. Don't scan them, read the questions 4 or 5 times, make sure you understand them, and then answer them correctly, clearly, and unambiguously. Shows understanding the broader needs and objectives. So this is often, there is so much research you can do on a local authority and find out what it is that their needs and objectives are, and make sure that your response responds to them, not just to this particular service, but that you understand what it is they're after. We'll get more into that later on. Demonstrate a credible and competent solution. Confirms the benefits to the client. Again, benefits, not features. Includes evidence to support and convince, and is written leanly, clearly, and precisely. So for the purposes of this webinar, we're just going to concentrate on these first 2. The others, where it goes into more detail on actually responding to a tender and how to write a good tender, will be in the following webinar. So the fundamental golden rule of bidding: excellent bids usually win contracts, poor bids usually lose contracts. And they are 2 broad sweeping statements, I appreciate, but essentially this is true. So it's about what makes up an excellent bid as against a poor bid. Yeah, it seems like a really obvious statement. And we're going to pick out some things here. Providing incomplete answers or not understanding the question. So as I've already said, every single question that you get asked, unless it's a yes, no, and even then be careful. But if it's a more detailed question, then read the question in detail, read it several times, make sure you understand it, and then complete your answer. When you've completed your answer, go back to the question and make sure it is relevant, that your answer hits every single part of the question in that. It is, you wouldn't believe how many times I've worked with companies and they said, well, we responded, because often what we'll do, we'll review previous responses when they haven't been successful. And we'll often pick out, well, you didn't actually answer that question correctly, or you didn't fully enough. And that's the problem. It is the number one reason for bid responses being scored lowly. The next one, closely behind it, focus on your business and not on the customer. This is really a features benefits thing. It's, we do this is not enough. You can say we do this, but you have to say how that benefits the customer and how is that relevant to the tender. So if you're really good at something, but actually that's not something that's relevant to the question or is relevant to that particular tender, probably better not to put it in. Only put everything that's absolutely relevant, and you focus. You're always looking through the customer's eyes. Always, what is it that they need, and what can we do to help them? Describing the features, not the benefits. Yeah, we have this machine. I'm doing a really simple example. We have this great machine is a feature. What this machine does and how that benefits us and how it makes things efficient and cheaper, that's a benefit. And that's a really, I know it's a really simplistic, almost childish example, but it is incredibly important to make sure that you benefits led and not features led. A lack of hard evidence. Yeah, you need to evidence, and that evidence normally is from testimonials or from case studies that are referenced with a company and a name that can be checked. There are many more, but these are the four. There's other technical reasons why things fail, but these four are the reasons mainly why a bid will be viewed as being poor rather than excellent. So there you go. So you're looking at a tender, you're thinking we could do that. And before you write a single word, then you should be why. Why should they choose us? There's lots of answers to that why, but you really should be asking that question first. So as a little exercise, so why would, if you were looking at a tender, a potential tender for any of your companies, and you were thinking, right, well, we could do that. So have a think, why should they choose you as a supplier? And how can you show evidence that it's proven expertise in the services required? So again, if you don't mind, if you want to put a few thoughts onto the chat that we can maybe talk through. So 2 questions, why should they choose you? And how can you show evidence of proven expertise? Yeah, Liz, that's depending on the kind of tenant. Yeah, and that's a really good answer. Depending on what we're looking at. Yeah, track record, processes, benefits. Yeah, track record of providing the service evidenced by testimonials, reviews, and ratings, etc. Yeah, any kind of evidence that you can, data evidence you can use is always good. That you're a local company, Aravinda, that's absolutely right. That there is something in that, absolutely. High quality past jobs, case studies, and company website images and testimonials. Strong financial backing, yeah, that's also true. You'll be asked financial questions. These are all relevant. 60 years experience, currently working with a number of local authorities. Well, John, that is really, really good. And these are all things. So what you need to do with all these answers here is use them, but frame them in such a way when you're answering questions about why you should is to what's the benefit to them. And so whether it's cost, efficiency, innovation, whatever it is that's required for that. And so if you look at what makes you a great company and why they should choose you, you just then have to turn that round as to what the benefit is to the client. They say the direct access to manufacturers products that we supply. Yeah, so that might be a cost or efficiency or supply chain advantage. So as it says there, putting yourself in the mind of the buyer. You write the bid from their perspective, absolutely, all the time. Yeah, so in that list, we have 10 years experience in the borough and successful outcomes. We can evidence absolutely, again, brilliant. So you keep yourself in the mind of the buyer. And you make sure that everything you write is from their perspective. And just repeating what I said before, empathy is powerful. It's kind of the secret sauce, if you like, of any bid response. So again, here are some reasons why a potential customer could choose you. How well do you know the client? Do you have a relationship? Several people mentioned their evidence, case studies, testimonials. Where can they find this evidence? Some people said it's on their website. You can point them to that, or you can actually provide it as part of the response as an appendix sometimes. Can you demonstrate it, experience in the sector? Have you worked on similar contracts? Again, somebody's mentioned that. And can you show the value added? That's the big thing, though. Have you worked on similar contracts? Yes. Can you show what the value added? The real power is in the value that you added. That's what you want to say. Not just we've done this. That's great, but what did you add? The knowledge and experience of your team, size and level of the resource. I mean, the one I say about size and level of the resource, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have 20 people. It's just proficient to what's required for that contract. But yeah, so you can see there several of the things that are on this you'd actually brought out in the chat there, which is really good. So download a brochure. So what? Is that enough? No, in a word, right? Your response to a tender is not about sending them a brochure. I've seen this done. Because you need to look for a differentiator. It says that many things you say about your company will also be claimed by your competitors. If you're in a market where there are lots of other companies that do a similar, excuse me, going to sneeze, my apologies. No, I'm not. Sorry, everybody. Right, sorry. Yeah, so you must turn generic language into focused, value-driven narrative with evidence to score the highest marks. In other words, you must turn what is in rather than saying no, we are great. This is then if you are going back to the point about being using empathy, understanding what the client wants, what their drivers are. If you write your response in that manner, then it won't use generic language. It would be very, very specific. And you'll be able to evidence that, which is a lot more than a brochure. And this is really, really important. Also, bear in mind, there are situations where in the final stages of some tender responses, when they get to the final stages of maybe 2 or 3, they actually may anonymize them, take out company names, and remove any reference to particular. So actually, all you see is the about the company, but not the company name. And so actually, if you've just basically sent a brochure, that won't be any use whatsoever. It will all be about the value that you're offering. So again, the golden rule, I suppose overall, is understanding what you're being asked, and the objectives are critical to write a written answer. It might seem like we're laboring this point, but it is really, really important to get your head in this space. You understand what they want and how can you deliver that and how can you add value and how can you be a trusted supplier? Why should they look at you and go, do you know what? You are the right company. Because I think one of the things to bear in mind, people think this is a race to the bottom price-wise. And price is important. Money is important because bear in mind, they're spending our money. So they have to be cautious. However, you will know on a tender response what the scoring is. So it may well be 50%. Simple one might be 50% price, 50% quality. It might be 60-40 either way. But the fact of the matter is, it can't just be on price. It isn't just a case of line up the prices and go for the cheapest one. It has to be, it's evaluated in a more structured way than that. So the quality really, really matters. There are situations where the price is the same as somebody else, or possibly your price could be higher, but your quality is off the charts. So bear in mind that really, really matters. It isn't just about throwing in as long as we're the cheapest will win. That we could argue that was once the way. It isn't the way now. Okay, objectives and needs. So if it's a particular project, what are the organization's objectives and drivers? You can look into this beyond the tender response. You can look we'll go into research later, but there's opportunities to find out exactly what a local authority needs. What are the needs of projects? What are the further needs? What's the added value looking at? What's the long-term plan for that particular project if you're involved in it. So for example, there's a rejuvenation of a town centre, and you're looking to bid on part of that. In order to build your response, it's good to understand the whole thing, not just your one little bit, but the whole thing, and how this pit work fits into that, and what value you're offering by your tender. So understand the objectives. They tell us in the ITT, which is the invitation to tender. You read that specification clearly so you understand it. And the next bit, we can ask questions and get answers. Yeah, there's a period of time in any tender process where you can ask questions directly. You can send those questions normally on a portal, and if something you need clarification, if you don't understand it, ask the question. Those answers will then be published to everybody, anonymized. Nobody will know who asked the question, but you won't get a personal response. The question will be up and it will be answered to everybody. That's going to be really, really useful. So you look at those, even if you don't think you've got questions, you look at what's called a clarification log. And that's really, really useful, really, really powerful, because it might have brought some things you haven't necessarily thought about. You can carry out research, increase and improve your understanding. There's lots of opportunities to do research on local authorities. And as I said, we will get to it a little bit more later as to how to do that. But so much information is available publicly. And we can clarify the client requirements through the formal Q&A process, which is just where about ask questions, getting answers. That's what I was referring to. This formal process through the portals where you ask a question and then the answers are published to everybody. It's incredibly powerful and immensely useful. So maximize the score, correctly identify the question elements, makes it easy to understand, establish the how you structure your answer, and your answer will score fewer marks if it partially answers the question. Again, laboring that point that make sure you answer the question fully and completely. So here's a quick exercise. So here is a question from a real bid. How many elements must our answer address? So I'll read this out. Please provide a high-level description of the structure of the company and structure of the division or part of the company responsible for delivering the services, including the number of people in each team. Please provide a description of the resources expected to deliver the proposed solution. Please describe other key contracts being delivered in a similar time frame and how any resource conflicts will be managed. So this is a question from a real bid. So the question is, how many elements must our answer address? No, nobody's going to put it. It's 6. Okay. Hinder, can I just mention, yes, I think when it's over, we do email the slides to you as far as I'm aware. But we'll double check that at the end. 6 or 8, 5. Well, all of them, Charlie, absolutely right. That's a very good answer. Okay, so let's take this forward. We said there's 6. So it's the high-level description of the structure of the company, the structure of the division or part of the company responsible, the number of people in each team, description of the resources expected, describe other key contracts, and how many resource conflicts will be managed. So there are 6 different areas. And I think that just put in a quite a short, what you might say a short paragraph, three bullets, there's 6 things you need to answer. And that's just to demonstrate the amount of time that you have to concentrate on these questions to make sure you're answering, because there will be questions that have nested requests through them. It won't be simply a yes and no. Evaluation criteria. This can vary a little, but essentially it's on a 1 to 5 scale. So as you can say, what you're after is a 5. And it's a well-defined solution linked to clear benefits backed by strong evidence. Quantification has been included, so metric included, which shows clear value. So you can show and you can evidence the value. That's a perfect score. Right to the other end, no response, or the answer does not meet basic question requirements. You don't want to do that. But the area to be really, really cautious of is round 3 and 4. So the answer, so for 3, the answer describes a solution adequate with some benefit. There's reasonable evidence, no value is expressed. That's kind of disappointing. A 4, a good solution, benefit shown with reasonable evidence, some value through quantification. What you want to do is take that and elevate both of those and say, it's right, what's, so you've absolutely, there are no gaps in anything that will get you a score of 5. So what are your potential sources of information on a customer? And so from the customer point of view is a local authority. And when doing research, what information are we looking for? So again, in the chat, if you don't mind, if just putting in someone, so what are your potential sources of information for a customer in this day and age? And when doing research, what information are you looking for? Just give that some thoughts. LinkedIn, local plan, website, web contact. This is all good. Absolutely. Websites, LinkedIn again, absolutely. Social media in general, company-wide site, local newsletters, absolutely. Meet the buyer events, absolutely. Oh yeah, data source. Yeah, I get what you mean. Websites, LinkedIn, other businesses. Yeah, exactly. Review page. Yeah, and the list goes on. Basically, Charlie, the Sales Navigator can be useful in LinkedIn. Absolutely. If you use Sales Navigator, it can give you a lot more information than just basic LinkedIn can. And maybe from your current supply chain. I agree. So there's all these, you have all these facilities at your disposal in order to be able to do some research on a customer, especially when that customer is in the public domain. So where will you go for the information about a client? So if you wanted to research Branduin, go to their website and use the page with all this. Charles is on there. And you can look at all those people, how to get hold of them. So you know all the people, the team, and the organization in that company. That's an interesting. Can I just come back to when you sound ChatGPT? Yes, up to a point. Yeah, it can now research websites, but you do have to be cautious of the information that ChatGPT gives you. And yes, you're right. Need to understand the values and what is approach. Yeah, of course. So that's one way of researching the company. You go to Branduin's website and you can find out how they operate, and you can find out the personnel involved in the business. Very, very useful. Yeah, their view of the world and themselves. You can go to a LinkedIn company page. Absolutely right. You can look at them and find out more details to see who they're connected to, which can be very, very useful. As you can see there, you can look on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, etc. All these various ways to find out information about a company. So when we're looking at a local authority, similar but different. So you go into a council website, and as it says, what's new in the world? What are they proud of? What can we mention, discuss, acknowledge? What is it that they are sharing? What is it their imperatives? What are they looking for? And this is incredibly valuable information. Like I said, if you're involved in a particular project, all the project information will be on the website somewhere. So it will be a real mine of information for you. So when you're doing this kind of research, you can see what their high value contracts are, what they're looking to do over the next year, who their buyers are, what's influencing their decisions. Do they have any contracts in your sector, or have they had some in the past? Incredibly valuable information. And so, you can research, you can go to something, so Watford, you can look at their contracts and procurement, you can see what's in the pipeline. Same with other areas. You can say, how to do business with the council. They'll tell you all to do this. And this is all available for all local authorities. And, if you compare this to the commercial world, this is very, very difficult to do. But because it's publicly available information, this is incredibly valuable. So you can reach out to these people directly. So researching sources, the bid document itself is a huge mine of information. This said, it leads your thinking. And based upon your own internal knowledge of your own sector and your business, if you've done previous bids and looked at the feedback, how could you improve on that, or what could you do again? The annual report of the council that gives you an idea of where, not just where they've been, but where they're heading. You can look at sites like Glassdoor. You can set up Google alerts, and then you can look at any number of things online. News organisations attend events, etc. But also government papers. You can go to the .gov websites, and you can, there are things about credit reference, etc., which you wouldn't use necessarily for local authorities, but there are other ways to find out more and more information. But you can also look at your competitors' websites and see if they say, "Well, we've just won a tender with," and understand how they've operated, because it will help you. you can look at what their strategy is, short, medium, long term. They will have plans in there. You can see their values and their vision, their philosophy, and what they deem to be important. A rural council, again, broad strokes, a rural council might have different approaches than, say, a city council, for example. What their challenges are, what the changes in the market, what's critical to them, and the language they use, because if the language they use a particular way, they can use that language back and reflect that language back at them when you're responding to their tender. What the definition of a good supplier, if they have one, some sites do, what they deem a good supplier. And if they give you a direction, this is a good supplier in our eyes, then follow that clearly. Key people, facts, results, metrics. These websites are full of information. Also relevant quotes. You can sometimes see minutes from council meetings. All these things are amazing. And then any kind of personal motivations, excuse me, that are shared by councillors, etc., or members of the council. So just quickly here, you can see where we are. We're here now. This is the various programs that we're delivering over the next, well into next year. Following this one, I'm delivering on April 16th, the Improve Your Bid Response, which go into more detail on some of the things that we've done at quite a high level. And you can see these lots and lots of different things that Brandon will run over the next year for Hillingdon. Very impressive. So just quickly on the process before I pass across to Charlie, because I'm just conscious of time. One of the things that's part of the tender advice session, these one-to-ones, where we build an action plan with you, so you get to understand your business. This is bespoke to your business, and is an incredibly important process. One of the things that I always ask companies to do when they're entering this process is to be very introspective and look at their value proposition hard. What is it actually that you do that adds value to your client? And then look again if that client is in the public sector rather than the private sector, because it's a different viewpoint. But this is incredibly valuable, and it gives you basically a forward plan as to how to get the best out of this process. Right, and so thank you for listening to me all this time. At this point, I'm going to pass across to Charlie, who will take you through the next stage of this and some of the local wins and case studies. Thanks, Charlie.
Yes, Alan, if you could just back up to the tender advice session, the one-to-ones, because
yes, of course. My apologies. Yes,
vitally important. And what Alan's done today is he's given you lots of tips, if you like, about logistics. He's told you, remember, answer the so what question. He's told you so many things that need to do. And one of the big things, which for me was, make sure you get into the heads or the minds of the buyer. And this is down to an individual person. And this is what we focus a lot on the one-to-one sessions. So when you come to a one-to-one session, it will be all about you. It will be all about your business and how you explain all of that goodness that exists within your business to a person who you want to hear. Because the other thing I'd like to say about tendering is, if you put yourself in the shoes of the tender respondee, the procurement officer, and you think, what does he know about me? What does he know about my business? Prior to receiving your tender response, the answer is nothing. So your tender response has to paint a glowing picture of who you are, what you do, and why they're interested. And that's what we go through on the tender advice one-to-one sessions. So obviously, I think they're good because I do them. So I would welcome everybody to follow the process. So yes, next slide, please, Alan. So meet the buyer event. One of the things that you'll find about public sector and large organizations in general is that they are looking for business efficiencies. And as you yourselves will know, one of the most expensive things to have in your business is good people. And local government and big businesses like to hide or be behind technical solutions, portals, websites, whatever it is, but anything that helps them to avoid having a real person speak to a real person within their organization. And one of the easiest ways to cut around all of that and actually get to meet face to face with the people who you need to talk to is to attend a Meet the Buyer event. Now, there were some buyers at our launch event, so you'll see the type of caliber of people we have. And I've been working behind the scenes since the launch event to try and actually get a list of likely works, jobs, things that are going to be coming up in the future for lots of the bigger local businesses. And the next event where you can meet the buyers is at the Hillingdon Expo. So I would encourage you all, if you haven't registered yet as an attendee, is register as an attendee, because if it's anything like last year, there's going to be something like 100 stall holders who would be interested in talking to you, and you would probably be interested in talking to them. And the other thing is, when you hear about big companies being on the panel side of the Meet the Buyer situation, bear in mind it may not be as it seems. For instance, HS2, everybody thinks, well, that's a company that builds railways. I don't have anything to do with building railways, therefore, why would I be interested? Well, HS2 have a person whose sole job is to meet HS2's legal requirement to use local companies. They need all sorts of things. They need board and lodging for the people who work locally. They need catering for people who work locally. They actually need an awful lot of stuff. When I spoke to him, I live close to the Maple Cross hole in the ground. I'm not sure what the proper name for it is, but it's where the tunnel starts. I think he said there are 3,500 people based in or around that site for HS2. And those people need a lot of looking after. So they still need things. And whilst you may not be directly tendering for them, you can still contact HS2 and you can still be surprised what they need for all the people in their workforce. So next Meet the Buyer event at Hillingdon Expo. Please register for the expo and come and see us and our buyers at that event. Thanks, Alan. Next slide. So I think you've already done that to get here on this webinar today. But if you haven't, please do go to that site, click on the Hillingdon Square with the aeroplane and fill in the questionnaire. Yeah, next, Alan. So case studies, or to answer Charlie's question, what's the point? Why are we trying to help businesses like yours? And the answer is really, really simple. Your local council has got money from local government, from central government to spend on you so that you can be more successful. And in this first case study, there's a lovely lady called Sarah. And when she came onto the program, she was working for facility management companies. So what that means is, if you've got a big office block, they put a tender out to the big facilities management companies. They put smaller tenders out saying, can anybody do cleaning? Can anybody fix broken windows? Can anybody do white line painting on the floor? And the problem for Sarah was, whenever the FM contract ran out, which is typically every 2 or 3 years, sometimes it's every year, if the old company that used her cleaning services didn't win it next time, she lost a job through no fault of her own. And one of the things she discovered, or one of the things we taught her on the course, was you don't have to go through the FM company. There is a way, which we tell you about, to approach the bigger guys directly. So she is now running offices in London, Manchester, da-di-da-di-da. Look at her website, see how much she's grown. And also, she now has the royal warrant to supply cleaning services to His Majesty the King and the royal family. So obviously, that's a great result. And it started here on the previous Hillingdon programme. Thanks, Alan. Next slide. So this is another one where these guys saw pallets, and before they really got their business going, they thought, oh, this is madness. People need pallets, and good pallets are in short supply. People throw away pallets, they smash them up, they get rid of them in the cheapest way possible. Surely there should be a link here. And how do we tell people we do it? Don't crush your pallets, we'll take them away. And if you need new pallets, come to us because they can be recycled. They're really, really good. And so they came through the course. We helped them to develop that story. We helped them to be able to write a proactive document that went out to people that had pallets. And instead of saying, hello, mate, we'll collect your pallets, it was a whole story about why recycling was good, why you can put it on your website to say, as part of our sustainability project, we use these people to take our pallets away and they get reused. And we also had further ideas that came through the program, which was, well, what about broken pallets that have been, broken in use? Well, first of all, the ones that aren't broken very much, they repair them. So 2 pallets become 1 good one. Likewise, they've also said, well, who else might use pallets in a kind of a funky way that we haven't thought of yet? And you can see there, DIY projects. People will buy the odd pallet, paint it a funky color, turn it into garden furniture. So that's another outlet to recycle or upcycle pallets. And they got all of that through the course. Next one, please, Alan. Now, here's a clever lady. So first of all, she knew she was bright, like a lot of you people. You know you're bright. And you think, oh, why can't people hear what I'm saying? Why don't they know I'm a bright person? Why don't they know I've got the perfect thing for them? And so by coming on this program, we'll tell you how to do it. We'll tell you how to do it in writing. And if you think about a tender process, actually, it's really, really simple, the point of a tender process. In my view, your tender response has one single objective. Go on the maybe pile. Imagine I'm a person receiving tenders and I'm employed by Hillingdon Council. We put a tender out and we get 35 responses back. It's a bit like reading job people's CVs. You go, oh, boring, no, no, no. And then there's one where your eyes light up and you say, ha, this person understands me, understands my problem, understands the council. They get what we're trying to do. Maybe. So the objective of the tender is to get on the maybe. And she did. And you can see she's now Businesswoman of the Year. And she's doing really, really well. So she's she is another success story for this program. And I would say to you, if you follow the program, do all the webinars, get your 2 one-to-ones in, you will have similar levels of success. At least that's what we and the council, brand you, and everybody involved in this is what we are aiming to provide for you. Thanks, Alan. Next slide. So I think you're already on the program if you're here, but if not, if you want to make a note of that phone number, please do. If you want to make a note of that email address, please do, because my role is to make sure that you had some really, really good one-to-ones. They will be fast. It's a bit like Alan's presentation today. He's covered a huge amount of material. He's done it as quickly as he had to and as slowly as he could. So there will be recordings of this made available, I guess, towards the end of the week. So for anyone that has attended, you will be offered a link to the recording. And then when you finish the program, when the program's over, you've done the 2 one-to-ones, then you can submit this thing called an EOI. It's an expression of interest, and it's like replying to a tender, but without there being a tender document. So you're still telling them how brilliant you are. You're still telling them you understand their problem, and you're still telling them how good your solution is. So we'll talk about that in more detail in the one-to-ones, and it will be covered later in the program. And then all you have to do is put it all together, the tools you've been given, the webinar recordings, so you've got all of that, and then you can go win business. So Alan, next one, please. Thank you. I've been monitoring the questions. I didn't see too many. I've also got an eye on the clock, so I should shut up.
Yeah, thank you, Charlie. Thank you for that so much. So yeah, just conscious of the clock. We are just after 12 o'clock. As Charlie said, there was a lot to get through. So if it feels we've whizzed through it, this will be available online, so you can go down and go to view it again, which will hopefully help. But it should hopefully has whet your appetite and realize actually this is something you should be involved in. What is the best tendering portal for IT contracts? Well, there might be different answers. There are so all this information is available free online, either gov websites or on local authority websites. There are lots of portals that you can pay for. My guidance would be not to pay for information that's available free. So there is Find a Tender and there is Contracts Finder, both on both our .gov websites, where you can do an open search for IT contracts of all kinds. The information is there. So my advice would be to avoid paying for this information, Sam. There are lots of companies that will charge for information that's available free. But if you in your later on in further on this, but you'll get a lot more details on how to do that. But it's not a random question; it's a really important question. Is how do you find this stuff? It's really important. Chantel, maybe that's a question for you, Charlie. Another great one. Just still would like to put it. You're on mute, Charlie.
Sorry about that. The question is, I'm from another Greater London district, but would still like to connect regarding my supply of ethical beans. So it's a two-part answer in that you are very welcome to attend the webinars, which will give you massive amounts of help. But the rules of engagement for us as a delivery partner to Hillingdon Council is your business must have a Hillingdon postcode for you to have a one-to-one with me. So either give me a call and say, is there anything else we can do? Because there might be. The other thing is, I know that we have run these in Ealing in the past, and we may well do it again, depending on the council and their current spend and whether they want to use this available UK SPF funding. So what I'd say is send me an email, Chantel, and we can have a chat later and see how much help we can give you.
The answer to that one is that's one of my favorite questions. Absolutely, you do, without a doubt. I mean, it's you do. You just have your response just has to be excellent and it has to be value driven. And what I would say is that having been involved in the construction of some bids from a large company, and some of them are not that great. Don't be off put just because there's larger companies. That's not a reason not to enter. There are plenty of opportunities where you can just do something that's better. Certainly, also if you're bidding for something that's in the region where your company is based, that's a real plus as well. So no, don't be put off by larger companies at all.
And if I can just add to what Alan has said, very often a smaller company is more agile, and
Absolutely.
very often the big tender companies, believe it or not, haven't been on this type of course, and they don't know what we are telling you, and so actually they do a really lousy job. Alan gave you a whole load of things to think about how to engage with them. And the very worst usually come from dedicated tender response teams because they're good at it. And if you look at their track record and say, how many tenders have you responded to and how many have you won? You would be appalled at how much time, effort, and money
Absolutely right, Charlie.
wasted.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
just wasted in big companies because, pardon my French, they do a tender response. It's the same as last time. It's not relevant. It's crap. And it gets rejected. So, no, don't worry about being up against the big guys. You can do a better response because, as I said earlier, when the guys open your tender response, they know nothing about you. You do a good response, it'll go on the maybe pile. A big company
Yep.
does a response, it'll go on the no pile. It's about the quality and the content of the response, and it's relevant to the buyer.
Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'm very conscious that it's 6 minutes past now. Thank you so much to everybody for joining. It's been a really enjoyable session, and I would implore that you take advantage of everything that Brandon offered through the Fit to Bid program. There's no negatives here. Just the investment of your time will be really really valuable to you. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much. Good afternoon. And Charlie, thank you for your help. And Lisa in the background, technically making sure everything runs smoothly. Thank you and thank you to everybody else. Have a really good day.
Thank you and goodbye from me.
Bye.